They told you your ancestors came from Africa, shackled, chained, sold like cattle. But what if that's not the full story? What if the entire slave narrative was a carefully constructed lie, designed to erase your birthright, strip you of your land, and rob you of your true identity? Let me ask you this. If all Black Americans came from Africa, where are the slave ships? Not the replicas in museums, not the dramatized Hollywood sets. I mean real proof. Where are the thousands upon thousands of ships it would take to transport millions of people across the ocean over hundreds of years? And how could that many survive months at sea under brutal conditions with no modern medicine or sanitation?
The truth is, most Black Americans didn't come from Africa. They were already here. They are the original Americans, the real indigenous people of this land. The so-called Native Americans you were shown in textbooks, the feathered Western tribes. They were real too, but only one part of the puzzle. The other part? The copper-colored, woolly-haired people that early European explorers described in their own journals. Those people were already here, and they were called many names: Moors, Washita, Yamasee, Creek, Cherokee. Not slaves, natives. But after the Great Resets, the colonial wars, the so-called Indian removals, the land grabs, history got rewritten. The darker-skinned tribes were slaughtered, scattered, and reclassified. They were renamed colored, then Negro, then Black, and finally, African American. Each name was a chain, each label a wall between the truth and your real identity. Why would they do this? Because if you knew you were native to this land, you'd have a claim to it. Land rights, treaty rights, sovereignty. But if they convince you that you're from somewhere else, Africa, they can erase your roots. They can deny your inheritance. They can justify everything they took. And they did. Public school never taught you this. Of course not. They want you to believe that Black people were just cargo, imported, sold, and freed. But they never told you about the American copper-skinned people that vanished from history overnight. They never told you that in census records before the 1800s, Black families were listed as Indians, or how the Dawes Rolls, a document used to assign tribal status, was used to erase dark-skinned natives from the record entirely. They were labeled freedmen, or just Black, pushed out of their own tribes, cut off from the benefits, the identity, the story. And what about the pyramids and mounds across America? The giant earthworks found all over Ohio, Mississippi, Alabama? Who do you think built those? The so-called mound builders weren't aliens or some lost civilization. They were your ancestors. Advanced, sophisticated, spiritual, builders, farmers, astronomers. This land wasn't empty. It was thriving until it was invaded and rewritten. So they created a story where the Black man has no land, no nation, no origin here. A story where all Black people are just descendants of slaves. Nothing more. But that's not true. That's not your history. That's their cover-up. The slave trade did happen, but not in the numbers they told you, and not always from Africa. Many of those enslaved were already here, taken from their villages, reclassified, sold. Some were even shipped out of America to other colonies. The truth is messier, darker, and much more revealing than the clean narrative they packaged in school books. Here's the real question. Why is it so dangerous for you to know this? Because knowledge is power. If you realize you're indigenous, that your blood is tied to this land, that your ancestors were sovereign people, you start to question everything. You question the government. You question the treaties. You question the whole foundation of this so-called United States. And that's the last thing the system wants. It wants you silent, broken, divided. It wants you thinking you came from somewhere else, that you have no place here. But you do. Your roots run deep in this soil. Your people shaped this land long before colonists ever stepped foot on it. So wake up. Look beyond the textbooks. Look into the oral histories. Look at the maps before colonization. Look at the art, the tribes, the skin tones described by explorers. Ask your grandparents. Dig up the old records. Find the truth they buried. The story of slavery was not just about chains and ships. It was about erasure, a brilliant, brutal rebranding of a people. Don't let the lie stand another day. Don't let your children grow up thinking they come from nothing. Let them know they are the heirs of this land, the builders, the warriors, the true American natives. This isn't about hate. This is about truth. And the truth is, you are not African because they told you so. You are American because your ancestors were America. And no amount of lies, textbooks, or fake history can ever change that.